Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of never mind the buzzcocks I was going to say then. Welcome to episode 3 of Something for the Busy Brain. This morning I've got my first guest, James Hansen. We've had a bit of a giggle because the podcast software wasn't working straight away. So we started about half an hour late. I thought everything was going to be fine. Road tested this yesterday with my 13-year-old boy. My 11-year-old daughter, Molly, could not have been any less interested in helping Daddy ahead of today. So let's blame the technical issues we had first thing on Molly, shall we? So my first guest on the podcast, James, has actually become one of my very closest friends. I would actually like to take the opportunity to get James to introduce himself.
Thank you, Ben. Together we can, right? Is certainly a good example of this morning.
Oh, it certainly is.
And listen, many occasions this year, actually, where, we've been there to support each other and connect, and become friends. I'm, as you mentioned, I'm James. I mean, it says my name there, doesn't it, actually? I'm James Hansen.
It does, but some
specialist.
people will be just in audio, so they might not see James Hansen.
Okay. No one likes a clever soul. Okay. So, yeah, for those that are listening to it, to the recording today on audio, I'm James Hansen. I'm a specialist addictions counsellor and also an ADHD life coach and the owner of Escape the Chaos program. Wonderful to join you this morning, sir.
And wonderful to have you here. Now we've got the technical bit out of the way. I'd just like to start by saying who you are to me. So we met 3 years ago now at ADHD conference in Liverpool. James has become a close friend. We try and speak to each other every week when we're in good habits. Occasionally I let James speak on the calls as well.
Fuck off. Brilliant.
The reason why my relationship with you is so special, mate, is I think we can relate to each other. The struggles, the busy brain. We use that time together to decompress from some of the shit that's been going on in our own heads. As a fellow coach, it's critical for me to have that confidential space where I can offload and share things with you. And I know that works in return. But I've also been the listener and the spectator when you've been speaking at conferences and events. And I have to say that you are someone I completely admire. And I'm very lucky to have you as a friend. And I know one of the things you said when you first started talking was about that support for each other. And I think all those things that you represent for me are around the word support. And I know that works both ways. But I think really interestingly is, despite your area of expertise, we've never actually spoken about alcohol, like fully. And I personally don't think that's right, because I don't always have the healthiest relationship with alcohol. I'm quite happy to say that. But I think it would be really, really interesting to hear a little bit about your backstory and your journey that involved alcohol, just to give people a flavour for where you were at.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for your kind words as well, Ben. It means a lot, man. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure connecting with you, man, and sustaining that relationship
Mm.
as friendship, as friends,
Yep.
and that additional support for each other. It goes a long way, doesn't it? It bloody really does. You know, when we're struggling, uh, anyone struggling with poor mental health
Yep.
or mental illness, you know, it's that connection with others is so important. It's very powerful, actually,
Yeah.
turning me upside down to we. Uh, Relationship with alcohol, yeah, it's a good question, and what a perfect time to discuss it. Just
Yeah.
for those that are listening or watching, this isn't, you know, there's been no questions that have fired out. You know, this isn't. There's no prepping this. What we're discussing, so it's coming straight from the heart, hopefully, and not the head.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit from the head.
Real and raw. It's the only way we roll, mate.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I've got, you know, I have, as you know, I've got quite a bit of experience with addiction behaviours, unhealthy habitual behaviours, and if I look at my personal experience with alcohol, it's 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 varied in a few different ways. So my relationship with alcohol from myself, but also my relationship with alcohol in certain environments growing up.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is, you know, my father, you know, mum and dad divorced when I was very young. My father's Scottish, and you know, big drinking culture, you know, and you know, I didn't really have a relationship with my father growing up. He was never there really for me and my older sister.
Yeah.
And when he did decide to sort of turn up and try to do what, you know, I guess an expectation of a father is, he was unable to do that. He was unable to meet that expectation. And I absolutely, you know, I absolutely get it now. You know, that
Yeah.
doesn't make it okay, though. I want to say that. It doesn't make it
Yeah.
okay for someone not to be there for their children. Because that was really important for me and my older sister. And that really had a massive impact on us. And that was a result of him having an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. So eventually he started turning up. But lo and behold, the place where he felt more comfortable, where my mum used to drop me and my sister off, strangely enough, was at a pub. My mum was a manager of a pub in East London. Uh, there was almost like an expectation that to celebrate, to have a good time, on one hand, would be to drink alcohol,
Yeah.
to enhance the experience. Even though
Yep.
alcohol is a depressant, it's actually the environment that is the
Mm.
stimulant, and the
Yeah.
people that you're celebrating with. That's the stimulant. That's the real good feel factor for me. Uh, but
I
I
think
had it.
just interjecting briefly, I think that's really critical in in people understanding things, that it's the environment that's the stimulant.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
thank you for saying
absolutely.
that.
And then you've got, you know, so on one side I've got that where societal's belief or expectation is that alcohol use in certain environments goes along with having a good time, you
Mm.
know. Um, and then on the other hand, I have obviously the relationship with my father that has more of a relationship with alcohol than me and my sister.
Mm.
So every time we see our dad, he would have a can of Tennent's or he would be in the pub, you know. And I remember being at a young age, you know, looking at him at the bar, you know, drinking a pint and a wee cherry vodka, yeah, and seeing bar, you know, and looking at my dad and seeing him smiling, and he was a popular guy, you know, back in the day. In the end, alcohol killed him. You know, let's have it right.
Okay.
You know, 8
Yeah.
years ago, it took his life. You know, and that's the difference between, you know, someone that can drink and stop 1, 2, 3 in,
Mm.
and someone that can't stop. They have one. It sets off a phenomenon, a craving, an urge of wanting to continue. Like my father, like my experience with alcohol too.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, seeing my dad up there and seeing him laughing with friends and things like that. And I associated that with the alcohol.
Okay. Yeah.
And I thought, you know, in a weird way, I want to be like my dad, even though I wasn't there really. You know, he tried his best, you know, with what he was shown, I guess. But that doesn't make it all right, you know. And I want to make that important because, you know, it's almost like, you know, you know, in the recovery sector, it's like, oh, you know, forgiveness and, you know, acceptance and, you know, compassion and, you know, and that's okay. That's all good and well. But, you know, when you've been brought up where your father's just not been there, that's going to have a massive impact on anyone, you know, any child. So, yeah, bit of both there. I can sort of gauge a bit of both of them areas. But anyway, so my intention was never to be like my dad, which was an alcoholic. I thought, you know, because there was times like, you know, I'd sleep with him and I'd sleep at his house where he had us, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember seeing a can of Tennent's next to him in bed. And now I understand that at some point he crossed the line and he become dependent.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is he got to the point where he believed in his mind and his and physically, for physical reasons, if he stopped drinking, he was going to go through states of withdrawal. So he had to maintain a certain level of alcohol use. So that was my father. But I started using substances, including alcohol, from the age of 11 to 20. I really tried my best to control staying away from the alcohol as much as possible because I didn't want to turn out to be like my dad.
Sure.
In fact, you know, my father ended up in a rehab. In fact, you know, before me, and you know, I guess the consequences outweighed what I believed the pleasure was with the alcohol. I soon got to the point where I couldn't have one of anything, not just alcohol, but, you know, let's stay on track of you know, the alcohol lens for a moment. So, you know, alcohol and drugs went hand in hand for me. You know, sometimes I did drink alcohol on its own, but quite often it was, you know, it got in the way of my inhibitions when I started drinking alcohol, and soon enough I was ended up, you know, on the phone looking for other things like cocaine or cannabis or other stuff. So my drug of choice quite often was more. Whatever it is, I want more of it. And if it meant it was that particular thing that I was doing at that time, including alcohol, it was always I'd drink to blackout. And what that means for me, and what I understand it to mean, is that if you can't remember the night after, when you wake up in the morning and you can't remember that night before, you've blacked out.
Yeah.
You've experienced blackout. And I thought in my brain, right, is that was a successful night. You know, I mean, nuts, isn't it? You know,
you laugh about not being able to
God,
remember it.
yeah, it's
Did you
like,
have
oh,
a good night? I must have done.
that must
Can't
have been a
remember.
great night. I can't remember anything. I woke up with no money. You know, who have I upset? What's gone on? You know, and I suddenly realised, you know, after being in recovery, you know, over 25 years, that wasn't a healthy way of drinking. You know, you know, and this year will actually be my 26th year of not drinking at Christmas.
How does that make you feel?
Proud. Proud. And it makes me feel good, you know, that I don't associate Christmas no more with alcohol use. You know, and I get it. You know, some people do. But if you can drink and there are no consequences, fair play. That wasn't my journey. You know,
and you know what? Sorry, you were still talking. It's highly unlike someone with ADHD to interrupt. So yeah, you say your bit. You've probably forgotten now anyway.
I have. I have. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
I'll steam in then. I often listen to you I'm not going to glorify you too much and big you up too much, because that's not us. But I'm often, is envy the right word? Yeah, I think it is. Let's go with it. I'm often envious of you not having alcohol in your life. And where that comes from is, it's very rare that I wake up after just having had 2 or 3 drinks, that the doom isn't there when I wake up. And I'm self-aware enough to know that why I might feel like having a drink. And I'm self-aware enough the next day to know that actually that doom, that those negative spirals, that shame, that beating myself up, I know that will pass, and I know that's the depressant element of the alcohol working on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because that can be so harsh the next day, and I have this conversation with everyone, as you will. It's what are the stats now? Like 1 in 5 people don't drink.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think it's very, very normal. And I think anyone listening will know that it's far more normal to be talking to friends these days who say, "Yeah, I just don't drink." And there's no stigma with that.
Yeah.
It's I don't drink. I think everyone can relate to the mental health challenges that alcohol can present. I think I'm guilty as a lot of people who, during COVID, it became a bit of an unwanted comfort blanket. But it became the ugly friend that I didn't then want to have with me after COVID. But the rot had set in, the bad habits were there, and I know I can be going to a night out, and there was a night out last week. So I work in serviced offices, and we had a night out last week, and I'd got the drinking fear.
Right.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to feel like I needed to have a drink. I didn't. I was going to be recording a podcast episode, and working on the edits the following morning. And there was something that I was saying to myself before I was going out. I need to know what message I can take out there, what I can tell people, how I can feel okay just having 2 and then going home. And I think around Christmas time there is a real societal expectation.
Mm.
But I think a lot of the time we put that on ourselves. We really, really put that on ourselves. And then, I find myself in a cycle now where, okay, I didn't have a drink last night, but more often than not, I could have a drink in the evening, or a couple of drinks in the evening. 'Tis the season and all that. Couple of drinks in the evening, maybe don't get the best night's sleep because it's alcohol induced. You wake up the next day, and then you caffeinate yourself through the day. So you've just got,
Yeah.
you're just up and down. And when this time of year it's 100 miles an hour and everything's all consuming and you've got to cater for everyone, you're going to be running on empty. So when you finally stop, when does your brain and body get to catch up when you're just surviving on booze and caffeine?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think talking to you, James, it's how do we normalize these conversations around alcohol and alcohol consumption?
Yeah. Well, I do think that we put ourselves under pressure as well, like what you said there. But I do believe that society puts pressure on us too,
Mm.
to justify their drinking. right? I'm going to name it, man. You know.
Yeah.
So ease off. If you want to drink, drink, but please don't encourage others, and respect what they're saying and the healthy boundaries they're putting in place when they say they're not drinking.
Yeah.
You know, because some people push.
Yeah.
To justify them wanting to drink. Now, there's also two different clusters here, and it's important to mention this because, I mean, you've heard of some people may have heard of the phrase an addict of a specific type. What that means is if you have one of alcohol, one bottle or anything, you are not able to stop. You lack the control to make that decision. And you don't know how long that's going to happen, like how long that one is going to, like what that's going to lead into. Is that going to lead into 1 day, 1 week, or years before you suddenly realize that you lack the control and all of a sudden you become physically dependent? You're unable to stop, right? So when that person, an addict of a specific type, stops, abstinence is the only way. There is no days off. You know, in the over 25 years I've been clean and sober, there is no days off. I cannot afford to have that one. Right?
Yeah.
So that's that cluster over here. Now, if you are a cluster where you can have a couple on occasion and, you know, it goes a bit Pete Song, you know, from occasion to occasion, you know, who am I to say that that's not something I'd recommend? It's down to the individual to identify the negative impact that's having on their life when they do that and how consistent that's occurring, you know? Because if there's no physical withdrawals, then what, for me, either way you're looking at it, there is unhealthy habitual behaviors, right? So what that means is the tape being played is like the unnormal becomes normal, you know? So it's like, you know, and then that expectation comes in on ourselves. Like we go into these environments and we expect that we've got a drink. But at some point, we need to record over the old tape, over the old unhealthy habitual behaviors till eventually the tape's playing a different tune. There was no expectations for me to drink in different environments today. I don't even think about it. You know, I have healthy boundaries. When I've had enough, I've had enough. You know, back in the day, I'd be the last one at the party because I felt like I'd missed out or, you know, or like, you know, people would judge me for leaving early. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it, right? It's like, you know, you got to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you've had enough, if you're able to, and you're not an addict of that specific type that I mentioned before, and you're able to leave when you need to leave. It's okay. You know, and sometimes no one really gives a shit. Let's have it right. You know, if you just disappear, right? If you just disappear without even saying bye, you know, there's like 30, I remember, like, you know, even like now, you know, when I'm not drinking, if I'm out with people that are drinking, when I've had enough, I've had enough. And there's like 20, 30 people there. I'm not going around saying bye to everyone. You know, a lot of the people are drinking in them environments, so I'm not drinking. So I'll just disappear. You know, people were like, oh, what time did you go? They don't know. They
They're in
don't
their
really
own
care.
world.
Right, exactly.
I think there's one thing there. Well, probably a couple of things. Some people will feel they can do that. Some people will feel capable of walking away and just going, I've done my bit. Other people will benefit more from having some of that accountability, or maybe someone, you know, the word we both used earlier is support.
Mm.
And I think I know I've done it, and sometimes we can make things easier for ourselves if we don't always trust ourselves to maybe have that conversation with someone else beforehand and just say, look, I don't want the doom in the morning. You know, whether you have two or whether you decide to not drink at all, going in there knowing that there's one other person who's got your back, and you've said to them, you know, maybe not keep an eye on me, but you're holding yourself accountable to yourself. You know, if you know that you don't really want the train to run away, sharing that with someone beforehand, I think is good
Yeah,
practice, because there's
absolutely.
always going to be other people that don't want to drink.
Yeah,
Always going to be those people who are just who've driven there,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
or those people who just don't drink. So I think there's something to be said for, if you're going into those situations and you are feeling uncomfortable, find that point of support, because
Yeah.
there is going to be someone else that doesn't want to drink as well. So, you can look out for each other.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I
And the
think,
more you do that, the easier it gets, Ben. The more you
yeah,
do that, the
absolutely.
easier it gets. That's why, I go out and it doesn't enter my psyche. You know,
Mm,
having a good time and drinking alcohol isn't hand in hand for me. But going back
yeah,
to what you were saying there, it's a crucial part. Is that we can
mm,
plan ahead.
yeah,
You know, if you don't have a drink during the week or whatever and you go out with friends, we can plan ahead. If you're not,
yeah,
it's also about what mood you're in before. Because if alcohol's a depressant, right, and you've had a busy week, you're feeling low in mood, you're not in a good
mm,
space, there's been a lot going on for you, and you're going in that notion of drinking alcohol, which is a depressant. Guess what it's going to do, right?
yeah,
So that is also important to bear in mind. If you are in low mood and that is the case, then if you're going out, absolutely connect with a friend, say, look, this is what's happening with me. I'm happy to come out, but look, I'm not going to drink, because I don't think it's going to be good for me. Put them
yeah,
boundaries in place and put a time for when you want to leave. I don't put a time when I'm leaving, because I leave when I want to leave, when I've had
yeah,
enough. But some people find that difficult. So the other way around that is to put a cap on it. Right, I'm going to leave at 10, 11. you know,
mm,
make your excuses, get out. It's like a salesman, isn't it? When you're walking through town, okay, I heard this bloke share about, get yourself a watch, okay?
hmm,
You don't have to work, okay? Don't have to have a battery in it. If you're walking through town and two salesmen come up to you and they're selling you something, what do? You make your excuses and you keep walking, right?
yep,
Well, in that environment, it's the same. You set your time, right, I'm going to leave at 10 or 11. If someone's with you, you can go, oh my God, I'm late. I've got to take an important call. I've got to go. And then boom, get yourself out the door. Or even
yeah,
if it gets too overwhelming, take small gaps, go outside, take some time for yourself.
mm. Self-awareness is everything, isn't it?
Mm,
It
absolutely.
really is. And I think there are probably a lot of people that'll be listening, um, that sit in those two camps,
Mm,
uh, particularly this time of year where you're. And I've sat in both camps. We've got Stoptober, we've got Dry January.
mm,
These are times when, as a and they've been a cultural thing that have come in, to try and help people form better habits, stop for a month.
yeah,
And I know I have been that person that's gone, okay, I'm going to stop drinking for a bit, or I'm going to challenge myself with not drinking for a month. And then you sort of reach that point where you're like, do I want to give up completely and have
yeah,
alcohol out of my life, or or do I want to just have a healthier relationship with alcohol? And I can't say which way I'm going to go,
yeah,
but I think it's the fact that you don't need to hit rock bottom to decide something isn't working for you. Um, and I think the word connection you talked about earlier. Um, but I think it's often thinking about the role that alcohol plays for us. What job is it? What job is it serving at that point?
yeah,
And I think understanding, what else could do that job instead of the alcohol. And maybe if we have a wider menu of options, think about what might be missing in our lives, that we can build in instead of alcohol. And a wise man once said to me, the opposite of addiction is connection. Think that might have been you, James. But that's the thing. It doesn't necessarily mean sobriety.
No.
But I think there's a very fine line. I think if you lean into the connection and the really deep human connection with people, rather than the alcohol, I mean, give people some. You live a life of sobriety. Can you tell me and anyone listening how you've lent into that word connection as a result of abstinence?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that look like to you?
In many ways. So the thing is, the difference between someone that's drinking alcohol in them environments running up to Christmas and someone that isn't, like myself, I had no option but to stop, right? If I could take one now and again, I'd still be doing it, man, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth, okay?
Yeah.
We are experts of our own world. We know the truth of what's happening when no one's looking, right?
Yeah.
And to what depth we're going to drink alcohol. Now, the only difference between myself and someone that is drinking in these environments is I'm not drinking, right? So let me just simplify this, right? It's
say that again. I just coughed
because it's a gem. This is right.
Yeah.
The only difference between me and someone that's drinking in them environments or around families this year at Christmas time, or any time for that matter, is the fact that I'm not drinking and the person is. So what I mean by that is that I still experience connection, laughter, love, and I have a fucking good time, man. I'm up there dancing. I'm probably the first person on the dance floor, right? Like, I'm still having a good time.
How do you do that without alcohol?
It's developing patterns. It's developing new healthy habits. Like I got to a point where I don't drink anymore. I want more to my life than not drinking. I want to create a life worth living.
Yeah. I
didn't stop all that stuff to be boring, and unstimulating and not have fun. Like, I wanted a life that was away from that expectation, that societal norms. So obviously, through fellowship, you've got mutual aid support groups and things like that. You've got Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all the other anonymouses there that are able to give you support. But the thing is, again, it's so important, because there's a lot of people that go through, a maintenance process where, like you say, they'll stop for January for 30 days to have that maintenance to replenish the spirit, and then they drink again, right? Like, that's not this cluster over here. They can't afford to do that, right?
Yeah.
But if that's the cluster, there is a cluster over here that absolutely, I work with both clusters, right? Because it's still trying to change unhealthy habitual behaviors, and urges of wanting to do it, and developing healthy boundaries, Now, that cluster over here, I would say, you have your evidence. You are the expert of your world, not me, right? So the negative impact ongoing that alcohol can be having on your life. So what are the consequences of drinking versus consequences of not? And you weigh that up. What would be the benefits of short-term abstinence or long-term abstinence? What are the positive gains? what are the positive gains from continuing to drink, short term and long term? And what that is, that's called something, it's called a denial matrix.
Okay.
Okay. Them questions that I've just asked there are derived from something called a denial matrix. You know, also, any behavioral change that we're looking to implement in our life, you'll find yourself in a place of ambivalence.
Mm.
One side of the mind is telling you this isn't a wise move. Maybe you need to have a break here. However, the other side, so that has called that internal dialogue is called change talk. It's looking at the benefits of, what would life be like without it? What would be the positives? Right. And then the other side, which is where a lot of people end up trapped in, where the unhealthy habitual behaviors lie, which is the opposite of contemplating change, is pre-contemplating change. Is that internal dialogue that's keeping us stuck time and time again, not just around alcohol, lots of different things, like going to the gym, eating healthy. There's lots of other factors that we have this internal dialogue that says, do you know what? Sounds like a great idea. But at the moment, I'm not going to change it. Just now. Right. That's the only condition I'm going to put on it, is I'm not going to change it today. I'll change it tomorrow, next week, next month. We'll look at it next year. It gives us unjustifiable reasons of wanting us to stay in the same old behavior. The problem is that avoidance, that heightens, that becomes an unhealthy habitual behavior. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. Excuse me. Festive coughing fit. Bet that sounds lovely. There you go, listeners. Drink that one in. Oh. So I think this time of year, there are going to be people sat around with family and friends, reflecting, just thinking of situations like myself. So this is kind of, how can you help me? And in you helping me, hopefully that will help other people. So we've had Christmas dinner. We're stuffed. We've had a raucous time at the table. It's been brilliant. All the family retire to the lounge to decompress. And someone says, should we open another bottle of wine? Or does anyone fancy a port? I will be in two minds. And it's sort of, it's that vital pinch point where if I stopped at that point, I feel proud of myself. I would feel genuinely proud of myself. Well done. I'm investing in myself, and I'm investing in how I start the next day. However, I could have one or two more, wake up the following morning, feel like shit, and then I'm in that shame spiral. I'm beating myself up. I shouldn't have done that. I'm rubbish. I've got no willpower. I'm getting in my own way. So there's that point, that tipping point. And I think that's probably the point that a lot of people are going to relate to. It's, you've got, and you said you've got one in the tank, maybe two in the tank. It's, how can we help ourselves stop at that point when we know in our right minds that we probably don't want to have another one, but we feel that we should have another one? What advice would you give?
Well, firstly, should is an expectation.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, I'm not too fond of the word should in any sentence, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I used it because
it's an expectation, isn't it?
it's an
You know, on
expectation.
ourselves and
Exactly that.
society, society. Um, when a train hits us,
When a what? Sorry.
when a train, a
Oh,
choo-choo
yeah, you
train,
did say
right?
train. Right, yeah, carry on.
Yeah. When a train hits us, it's not warning us of the fifth or sixth car that does the damage. It's the first car that hits us that's going to do the damage.
Mm,
So maybe on that notion there, it's staying away from that first one. If you're not wanting to go down that road and you're
yeah.
not able to control it, because the thing is, like, I'm not here on a personal or a professional level to control someone's drinking.
Mm,
That's not something I'm able to do, right? I'm not that
yeah.
powerful, right? Uh, but it's that decision of plan to take forward. Where is this going to take me? And
Mm,
refusing to pick that first one up. If you're a specific type of person that can drink a couple and stop, obviously, if you're in the other cluster, you stay away from the first one no matter what. You get
yeah.
yourself out of any high risk situations to reduce the the risks of doing it. You
Mm,
phone up people and say, "Look, I'm not drinking. When I come, I'm happy to come. I'm happy to join you guys." You put the boundary in, but
I like that.
we can't
Yeah.
expect people
Forward
to,
planning.
to yeah, we can't expect people to respect that because look, my stepfather, I haven't drank for 25 years, right?
Yep.
And now and again, when I go down there, he'll go, "Oh, do you want a drink, Jim?" And my mum would go, "He don't drink. What's the matter with you?" Right?
Does he
I
do it
don't.
on purpose? Or
No,
no?
no. He just thinks it's all right. It's okay. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I can't expect everyone to not ask me.
Mm,
But it's that firm boundary in place. But I'm a cluster of the people over there, right?
yeah.
However, if you're going into Christmas and not wanting to drink or limit that, and you're able to limit that, then look at the occasions of where you're going, who you're with, connect with one person, plan ahead,
Yep.
and if you're not drinking, refuse to pick up that first one, and you won't get drunk.
You know what, mate? I think I'm really glad that we had this conversation this morning because it feels like, you know, I drink. I've been to venues with you. We stayed overnight in a hotel,
Mm.
not in a bromantic way, but we stayed. You have seen me with a towel around my waist, mind. I'll say that much. Um, you lucky man.
I
um,
don't know about that.
yeah. All right. Hang on. It's Christmas time, mate. Be kind. Be kind. But I've been. You invited me to a LinkedIn networking party in London,
Mm.
and it was great. Um, and I think just briefly sort of dissecting some of the things that you've said this morning. Um, where we stayed was rooms above a pub, and we came downstairs to the pub,
Mm.
and I was sensitive enough to say to you in advance, is that going to be a problem for you? Is that going to be okay? You're like, no, I'm cool.
Yeah,
Because the only difference was you drink, I don't.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is just the environment and it's the people.
yeah.
But then we went on to that LinkedIn event, and that LinkedIn event itself was like a neurodivergent party. It was incredible. That party was all about connection. And you and I both made some incredible connections there. But also the number of people I met that night, probably more so than anywhere else, there was such a high prevalence of people that did not drink.
Absolutely.
You know, right from when you walked in through the door, it was, you had the alcoholic, the non-alcoholic options. The non-alcoholic option was there in front of you at the same time as the alcoholic one. So, and it was, it was just normal, and it was lovely. And I think whether we're talking neurodivergence or mental health, I think a lot of us who identify as neurodivergent or people who have a busy brain, we tend to feel our way through life. So we'll probably experience higher highs than other people, but also lower lows.
Mm.
And I think that self-awareness should tell us where we're at in terms of whether we should or shouldn't drink. Given a certain time, if we're on a bit of a negative slide, maybe don't, because your low is going to be considerably lower than everyone else's.
Mm.
And then I think sometimes if you're on the up, sometimes you can think, oh, alcohol's just going to enhance this. So what you said there about the forward planning, knowing how you want to be on that, on that night. And if you don't want to drink and you want to be that better version of yourself or more in control of yourself, I think it's just, there's a lot to be said around self-awareness. And if you feel that you may succumb to peer pressure, as you said, find that person, plan in advance, and find that person who doesn't drink, has chosen sobriety, or that person who can also support you.
Yeah,
But I think
absolutely.
it's about that, knowing yourself and knowing that. I think probably a nice way to, a really nice way to sort of wrap things up this morning is that thing you said about, well, I think, the line, and I'll ask you to deliver it as the closing point on this morning's podcast, about the difference between the person who's drinking and the person who isn't.
My ADHD brain's gone, watch which line's that? I've got many lines.
Yeah, it's all right. It was probably my ADHD vagueness. So you said the only difference between the person. Yeah, got it. There he is.
Yeah,
there he is.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. Connection. Yeah. So the only difference between me and someone else is that I'm not drinking. I'm still in some of these environments. And remember, if you're going to an environment where there's alcohol and you're not expecting to drink and you find that really difficult, then maybe it's a decision at this early stage is to not go. Because look, if we keep going to barbers, eventually we're going to get our hair cut. Right? We expect not to. Right? But I'm in these environments. Okay. When I'm feeling okay within myself to be in these environments and make a decision to be in these environments.
Yeah.
I still have a bloody good time. In fact, I believe I have a better time than I used to have when I was drinking, right? And I wake up in the morning, I've remembered the night before. I've not upset no one because I know I haven't, right? I haven't blacked out. I've woke up with money. I've woke up, intact. Trust me,
Yeah.
because a lot of occasions I weren't intact, right? But so
without
the only
half a
difference
kebab across your
is,
face.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah. If I was lucky, yeah. Or woke up somewhere else,
Yeah.
I wake up when I'm safe.
Mm.
I'm safe.
And you're safe within your own mind as well. I think I love that. It's you're waking up in a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if you are gonna, if you are gonna drink this Christmas, plan ahead, stay safe. And if you're an addict of a specific type, and this is your first Christmas, know that you're not on your own. That I'll be there with you. I'm doing the same, and it's okay. Let's reprogram that societal norms to being the norm, that actually to go out to have a frigging good time that don't involve alcohol is absolutely 100% okay too. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you're going to build more healthier norms.
I love that. I love that. And just to close things off here, if anyone, when I go back through the recording from today, if there are any useful links or links to James or myself, and people want to pick up the thread of things, I'll make sure that, and I'm speaking on your behalf now, mate. James and I are available. We want to support. We do what we do because we want to make a difference. So any useful links will be included in the description from wherever you listen to your podcast. Now, in typical ADHD planning fashion, I have a client in a few minutes, so so I guess I'd better go. But that's the raw authenticity of the kind of conversations that we want to have here. It's like things don't go according to plan. They really don't.
Yeah. And sometimes they flow as they need to.
Yeah. James, it has been an absolute bloody pleasure. And you have yourself a wonderful Christmas.
You too.
I can understand you having your own boundaries and saying no to recording the podcast on Christmas Eve. Well done, mate. Well done. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to say no to me, but well done, mate. Well done.
Absolute pleasure to join you today, my man.
You're a beautiful man, buddy. Take care, mate.
See you later. Bye.